Hi, this is Jesse Linares, Skills Up Ambassador and Sanvia ArTeam member. The video you're about to see is a pre-recorded live stream that we did for our Sanvia partner schools. Now, if you have a school and you'd love for your students to use Sanvia tools and gain access to exclusive education opportunities just like this one, then click the link in the description below. And we're super excited that we have with us Mr. Adrian Sandoval. Let's bring him up on the screen here too. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, Jesse. How are you doing?
Awesome, man. It's great to have you back once again. The last time you were with us, we had such a good time, man. Your live model, Ben, was a hoot. And
I don't got that good-looking model this time.
Well, I mean,
Lydia, just as good-looking. What am I
Lydia's
saying?
totally good looking. You know, we've all spent so much time with her. So, yeah, she's beautiful. And so, man, we want you just to take it away here today. I'm going to get off the stage and let you have at it. Have a great program, sir.
Thank you, Jesse. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Adrian Sandoval, Sanvia ArTeam member here to show you how to cut a pixie. So if you want to put in the chat, so how comfortable are you cutting with short hair? It took me a long time to understand short hair or feel comfortable with it, because I think at one point I was just cutting short hair just to cut it shorter, but really the main thing is using their whole head shape and personalize it to each one of our clients. You know, I feel like with long hair, we do use a face shape, you know, the neck length, everything too, when it comes to like layering. But when it comes to short hair, you are using the whole head. You are using the occipital bone where to build that weight. So making sure that we are following the head shape is very important when it comes to our clients. And I always say with short hair, it's very important to get comfortable with it, because these clients come back every 5-6 weeks. They pre-book, they buy product. I do love all my long hair clients, but you know, let's be honest, I probably see them 2, maybe 3 times a year. So cutting short hair, men's, women's, is really gonna fill your books up. So yeah, try to get comfortable with it, practice as much as you can. That's why we have these mannequins, to try to get comfortable before you get into the salon and really getting those tips and techniques down. I do have already cut mannequin that I used on a YouTube video before. And you can see how the shape is. See how it's a little shorter around that sideburn, right around that nape area, and you can see that weight being built up. So when you do want it to have sit flat, I'm going to have this follow the head shape, but then I'm going to continue to follow that cut line and actually start moving away from the head shape. Now you can see that crown starts rounding in just a little bit. I don't want to follow that. I'm going to follow that cut line, and that space that you see between the mannequin head and my hand is where that weight's going to be built up. So I do follow their occipital bone immediately to start building that weight. I do have my mannequin right here that I am going to be cutting. I did already previously cut a side. So here's that mannequin that I am going to be using. I already have that previously cut side. And if I get that nice up and close, you can see that profile where it sits flat to the head. We got that weight being built up. The weight being built up on the side. I'm going to show you a side shot, and you can see it's getting a little shorter. I kept that sideburn a little longer just to kind of have some options, tweaking that at the end. But you can see that weight being built up. And when it comes to my short haircuts, when it comes to men's, women's, those low taper fades, I always follow where that vertical transition is. I did use our Velcro grips. I don't know if any of you have Velcro grips, but these are amazing for short hair. We all know those clips sometimes do not want to hold that short hair, so those Velcro grips really push and keep the hair out of the way. So if you have not purchased those already, I would recommend purchasing those. And I use those, like I said, on all my short hair. So how I find that vertical transition where I'm going to put these Velcro grips in, I like to do my teeter-totter method. And let me show you what I mean. Taking my comb, nice and vertical, I am going to push that top part up just a little bit, and see where it starts rocking is right where that round of the head is, and right where that comb stays on the head is where I'm going to be parting off. I do find it right there at the temple, and then I'm going to go place that comb vertical like that occipital bone, push upward, rock that back and forth, and right where that comb stays on the head is where that that crown section will be. And you can see when following any head shape, it's going to be a little higher at that temple, and it's going to work its way down just a little bit. I'm going to spritz this mannequin down. I don't want it soaking, but I do want it damp. When I first started cutting short hair, I used to just cut that nape guide, put that hard line in, and then just try to work my way up, and hopefully that weight is built up where it needs to be. Now, instead of working bottom up, I actually work top to bottom. So what I'm going to be using is our 6.25 streamline shears. It's a little bit bigger than the giveaway, but those 5.5 is actually perfect for this video because smaller the shears, I would say it was very good for short hair. It's going to be great for precision. So those 5.5s on Pixies are going to be great, whoever wins that giveaway. So with my previously cut guide, I have that weight right here. I'm going to follow that. I'm going to be taking vertical sections when I'm in that back area. And when I work my way to the sides, you're going to see they're going to become vertical and then slightly diagonal forward. And then by the time I get to that front, I'm going to almost have a horizontal section in that front. And what it's going to do is almost match up to that weight line. So once we get to that part, I'll break that down a little bit more for you. But as of right now, I'm going to be using vertical sections, keeping that hair damp. And what I like to do is grab a little piece of that previous guide. Now, if I have my fingers square, what I'm going to do is produce a lot of weight. But what I want to do is follow that head shape. I do not want to follow the head shape above that occipital bone. It's everything below that is what I want to follow. So taking my fine teeth, looking for that short piece in the front, and then making a point that's pointed inward. So that was the high to the middle point of that section, and I'm going to work my way down. And as I get to that nape area, I really need to make sure that my fingers are almost pressed up against that head. So I know that I am flush and everything is going to sit flat as I work my way down. Taking another section. This section now is going to be a little more diagonal. Not completely vertical, but you can start seeing that shift happening. Now I always kind of think of a clock. So right now it's at that 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock, you should say. And then we're going to be working our way down all the way to once we get to that horizontal part in the front. If you have any questions at all as I'm working my way, please let me know. So depending on the texture that you're working with, if this was coarse, thick hair, I will be getting really close to the scalp and making sure that hair sits flat. If we're working with finer hair to kind of create that exact same look, you might keep the hair a little bit longer because it's all about transparency. If the hair is kind of transparent, as I mean almost see-through where you can see the scalp, you want to keep that fine hair a little bit longer so we don't run into that. So please comment if you have any concerns about short hair, any parts where you feel like you kind of lose it. Sometimes, you know, we feel really good with these haircuts, and then we get to a point of the head where it starts to be kind of becoming confusing, doesn't feel comfortable for us. So let me know if you have any questions about that. But I'm going to continue on.
I got a question, bro. I love that you're starting from the top and working your way down. I generally tend to want to start from the bottom and work my way up. I mean, can you give us like any hot tips or reasons why that would be beneficial? Does it create safety for us in any way, or is it just something that you chose to do?
I felt like when I started working at that bottom point, I would almost cut to that face, the head shape. But as I work my way up, sometimes that weight line isn't exactly where I want it to be. But working my way top to bottom, I feel like I'm producing that weight line and seeing exactly where it is immediately. Adjust my fingertips and get a little bit closer to the scalp and being a little more flush with it. But I do like to produce that weight line immediately, and then it kind of shows me where I need to be as I work my way down. Sometimes when we work our way bottom up, you know, we're cutting short, and then all of a sudden, once we get that section down, we realize it's a little too long than what we want or the look that we're trying to go for. So by working our way top to bottom, I feel like that we're producing that weight, getting that weight where it needs to be, and then just working our way down.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
So now that I'm getting to the sides, you can see my sections are starting to become a little bit more diagonal. And working with students with this haircut, you know, it gets a little trickier. Like I said, it took me a while to understand short hair because we're not just cutting the hair, just, you know, taking an inch off. Sometimes if it is a new client, sometimes they do need a little bit more off some parts of the head, some a little bit less on some parts of the head, just depending on how their previous haircut went. So keeping these sections really clean is important. I'm always trying to push this out of the way. You can see I'm trying to just maybe even use that ear for a little section clip. Push that out of the way. And then I'm going to take my fingertips and get really tight following that head shape. But keeping those sections clean, using that fine part of your comb could be the trickiest part of it all. And we always tend to take a little too thick a section. So I'm going to go in, take a small 1/4 inch section, grab a guide from the previous section right there. So what I'm doing with that guide is I'm actually over directing it to the section I am cutting. Now I do have diagonal subsections, but my fingertips are parallel to that. Once we get to the side, we tend to start over directing back. And that's what I call the earmuff effect. We're also super heavy. We're not getting that nice taper, that flat to the head look that we do want, and it gets really bulky. And usually that's tend to be either your fingers aren't on that angle that it needs to be, or that we are over directing it back, and then we're going to get that unwanted weight. So my subsection is a diagonal forward. My fingers are pointed in diagonally, but I am pulling it out from that subsection. I'm not pulling the section back. I'm pulling it straight out to where I just parted the hair. So every time I grab a section, I do take my fine teeth and try to push that out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. Using that guide and making a point that my fingertips are getting closer as I work my way down towards the hairline. So as of right now, I am going to be just keep following the head shape, but as I get to that sideburn area, we always want a little bit of options. I don't know if any of you guys ever cut short hair where all of a sudden you cut that sideburn too short. The client wanted a little bit more piecey, a little softer, and all of a sudden it's like way up to that point where it's kind of that hard line. So this is going to be the only time when I get here, I might be kicking my fingers out just a little bit more to maintain some of that length.
Hey man, we got a good question here. Can I splash it up for you?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, they want to know, Christy says, would point cutting create a softer version of this cut?
Definitely. I am such a big fan of point cutting, although doesn't like me too much because I'm always still cutting myself all the time. But yeah, you can definitely point cut it. So I say if it's like that coarser, thicker texture that you know, I would go right into point cutting. Lydia here has medium to fine hair, so I'm just using precision, just straight blunt cutting. But as soon as I start dropping sections from the top, you're going to see me switching to point cutting, and then that's going to kind of create more of that texture look that you were going for. So at the bottom here was all blunt lines, just solid blunt lines. But as I started blending in that top where that Velcro strip is holding up, I am going to be switching to point cutting. But I'm a huge fan of point cutting. It's just not a big fan of me. I don't know about you guys, but I go on spurts with the point cutting. Sometimes I'll go months without cutting myself, and sometimes I'll be cutting myself 3 times in 1 week. So, and I'll show you a little safer way of doing that. I don't know if any of you ever use texturizing shears, but that is a very good technique that we're seeing all over. Is that this is our 14-tooth point cutting shear. So instead of going in and trying to take those tips into your fingers, you can actually scan it and go across, and you're still going to get that point cutting effect. And it's a little safer using these instead of kind of going in with the tips towards your fingers. So I am seeing a lot of texturizers used for when cutting basically full haircuts. I think in the past, traditionally, we would use those at the end, break up any weight. But it's kind of working smarter, not harder. Why not create that texture immediately? Don't put those blunt lines in. Create that texture immediately with those point cutting shears. And that's going to save you some time when it comes to the dry cutting after you're done styling it. I've seen you, Jesse, use those texturizing shears a few times throughout the haircuts at the shows.
You know, man, when that shear came out, you know, the name was so mysterious, right? The 14-tooth point cutting shear. And so I really devoted myself to using it because I wasn't really ever a big fan of chunking shears, but what you can do with that thing and the way the teeth are oriented to bite down onto the blade really does make it an effective haircutting shear. And I got to confess, bro, when I'm in the salon now, I usually do 80 to 90% of the haircut with the blenders. And then I go back and just refine with my regular shear. You got time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, please do.
All right, man, here comes one.
It's just me all alone in my basement, Jesse. Please keep talking.
I know, man. It gets lonely in the studio. I feel it too, man. So Layla wants to know, what is the most beneficial way to cross-check short hair like this?
Great question. And you're just a little ahead of me. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I do like to take that vertical to kind of the diagonal, horizontal. And then once I am done completely with the side, I'm going to go back then and do diagonal back sections. And everything should just match up. You could do diagonal forward, you can do diagonal back, and everything should have that exact same look to it as long as you're following that angle. So yeah, my fingers, you can kind of consider more diagonal forward, but then when I'm going to be cross-checking, I am going to be going diagonal back and switching my finger position. So I'll be getting into that real soon. But great.
Right. Cool. Yeah, we'll see more of that. How about this one? Michael says, could you use a razor with this cut?
Of course, razor Pixies are so in. I am more of a point cutter personally. I do use razors a little bit, but I tell my students too, after you're done graduating, you know, if you get good with that razor, there's always those people that call salons and ask who's good with razor cutting, who's the razor cutter in the salon. So yeah, some people, and that creates that softness, just like that previous question was asking about point cutting. Same thing, you know, that razor is going to create that soft line. So it just depends on what you're going for. And if the hair was really thick and coarse, I would probably be using the razor.
I've been saying it for a while too, Adrian, like for 5 years now. I'm like, the razor cut is coming back, you know, and I really feel like, you know, we just have to be ready for it, because at some point, somebody's going to do something with a razor cut that's just going to blow everybody's mind. And then those of us that aren't familiar with the razor are going to miss a step. You know, we're not going to be able to keep up with those trends. One last question for you right now.
Hopefully it's not the last one, but you keep going.
It's not the last one, but it's the last one I've got in the hopper right now. Rand wants to know, do you keep the head tilted forward the whole time you do the back?
When it comes to tilting the head forward, so say when we're teaching the students, or if you're at a school, you know, when we're cutting solid form, we do put that chin down just so that first nape guide is beveled under. So that's not really going to affect the cut line with the head down. I would say it's more personally for you to just see it better. Because if you're like this at the head, it's going to be a little more uncomfortable. But if you can have their head tilted down, I feel like it's a little more visually easier to see. So you can have the tilted head down or upright, but it's not going to affect the cut nearly as much. I mean, you got to obviously keep in mind where their head shape is while you're cutting, but it's not going to affect the cut as much as like long hairs when we tuck that chin down. So now I'm moving my way to the side. So now everything shifts, and this is where sometimes we start getting that whole earmuff look. And before I'm actually going to go to the side and finish that up, I'm going to check that weight line. So you can see that weight line being built up. So you want to make sure that we are grabbing from the same points of the head, using our touch. You can look at it, but sometimes I do like to look away, stare up at the ceiling, and just use my their eyes can play tricks. Instead of cutting that whole side and just having our fingers crossed, because we all know you cut one side so good, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh great, now I got to make the other side the exact same. You know, that's always the struggle. So instead of finishing up that whole side, sometimes stop what you're doing, grabbing those points of that weight line and making sure that everything is even before you continue on. So everything is good right now. I am going to keep the sideburn part a little bit longer, but when it comes to that top of the ear, it all depends on the person. So consultation, do we want to cut around the ear? Some people do not like the tips of their ear, the top of their ear, so they do want to cut up a little bit. I did keep it a little softer. It is mostly cut around the ear, but it's still got a little bit of softness right at that tip. So that's a big part of the consultation when you're doing this. Of course, pictures are great with short hair. Anything like around bob length or shorter. I always love pictures because sometimes it's hard for the client to explain what they want. But this time I'm going to just kind of point cut around that ear, but not really give a hard line. So it just depends on what they're going for. But when it comes to this top of that ear area, I'm actually going to take my finger position a little bit tighter. You can still see, I'm going to bring this in now. You can still see that guide from that previous guide. Now, once again, I do not want to pull this new section into the previous guide. I'm taking that previous guide and pulling it into my new section. And I'm at the top of that ear. I know I don't need too much length going on. So I'm going to keep this a little bit tighter. And my next section is going to be kicked out just a little bit more to keep that sideburn a little bit longer. But always look at what you're doing. You should constantly still seeing that weight being built up. You can see that as I push it up, there's my weight right there. And then everything tapers down. Still doing those diagonal forward sections. Grabbing that section from the top. There's my guide right there. I am going to cut this hair right past my fingertip. But now I got a little bit more. Trying to push this out of the way so we can all see what's going on. So this part right here. So where is this going to sit if I leave it be? It's going to start becoming that sideburn. So I'm going to look for my guide that I have right there. But now what I'm going to do is start kicking my fingertips out just a little bit to maintain some of that length. And then I have a little bit more options when it's all dry, what I'm going to do. Grabbing another section. Right now I'm still kind of doing more diagonal forward sections, but this next section, everything's going to start shifting a little bit more horizontal. And look at what I'm doing. I'm switching to that point cutting because I do want this a little softer. Grabbing the next one. So this is where it starts getting tricky. My section's starting to become, it was a little more diagonal forward, a steeper one. Now it's starting to shift to more horizontal. And this section right here, I want to lift this up to where that parting is. I don't want to lift it all the way down where that sideburn I just cut. I'm going to lift this up, look for that guide in the back, and work my way down. Still got one last section right there at the top. Going to clean that section up just a little bit. Leaving that section alone. Doing that second last section right there at the front hairline. Let's soften that. Bringing that down. So this last section right here is where I was saying, now this is almost like horizontal, as you can see. I am following that weight line. So I'm looking for that short piece and working my way all the way forward. And this is where that weight usually sits, the heavier part. So instead of going in when it's all dry and breaking that up with some point cutting, which I know we always have to do, I'm just going to immediately go in and point cut it right then and there. And drop that weight, removing that immediately. Got some little stragglers. Let's get rid of those. So now that side is done. All that weight being built up. Got that softness at the bottom.
Hey man, how long would you say this cut typically takes to do in real time? I mean, not that you're doing it like in slow motion or anything, but you know, how long does it take?
You know, unless my client has some very thick, long hair, curly hair, wants it all blown straight, I usually just take an hour for all my clients. I rent a spot, so I rent a chair. So I'm in charge of, you know, checking out my clients, washing, shampooing, conditioning, pre-booking, cleaning up before the next client. So within all that 1 hour time frame, I need to be done with this. But usually with short hair, I could be done probably within like 45 minutes. I see a little strand. I'm sure you guys are all seeing. It's like, is that connected or not? You never know sometimes. All right, now we're good. All right, so let's go back to that previous question when it comes to cross-checking this. Now, the first good way to cross-check this is following that weight line. So you can go in, make sure that weight line is completely connected. If you see like any little corners, remove those. And I'm just gonna walk my way all the way to the front. So making sure that weight line is completely connected all the way to the back. That's a good way of cross-checking the weight line. But then everything below that, we're gonna be doing diagonal back sections. So I'm taking my fine teeth, pulling that forward. I'm always looking at that section. So looking at that section, you can see there's my weight line, and then it gets a little bit longer. I don't want to remove anything at that way bottom because there's a sideburn, but I'm going to break this up and taper this just a little bit more with some point cutting, softening it since we're at that front hairline. I always drop it in place. Assess the situation, I always say, making sure that it is where we want it. Then I'm going to grab another diagonal back section, bringing that forward, not wanting to cut into the weight line at the top part, but you can see that little jump that's right there? I don't want that weight, so I'm gonna go in and go a little bit tighter. Sometimes you can just keep cutting and cutting the original way I did with diagonal forward, and you feel like something's missing. Going in sometimes with that diagonal back section is gonna catch some of those hairs that you did not catch previously when you cut it originally doing those diagonal forwards. So cross-checking is very important for your work. at all times. In a perfect world, everything would be even, everything would be balanced, but we all know that's not the case.
Well, man,
So
we got a question here that's going to take us into some deep thought. What do you think? You want to try it?
Well, let's go for it.
All right, man. So with time being money, I have seen long haircuts with a higher price tag, but tend to take much less time than our short haircuts. So do you have any guidance that you could share around this?
Would you say this is more about like pricing the haircuts of lengths?
And that's kind of how it sounds to me. Is that, how do we price it? And Joseph, if you're still in the chats, if you can refine us, throw something else in there. But, that people can really fly through a haircut, but then they're charging more. So I guess maybe the question that I would ask in addition to Joseph is, what justifies somebody charging so much?
Yeah, and when it comes to the short hair and long hair, it's like, and just the way the world is, of course, not getting into details, but it's like we always had the men and women's price. But sometimes these men, just like Jesse with his luscious locks, you see, he's got the long hair, and then sometimes some ladies have some shorter hair, and we're charging them. So even if you have a short hair men's haircut and a short hair women's haircut, it could take the same amount of time, but then we're charging more for the women. So I'm guessing it's really more or less time. I think that's what I think a lot of people are kind of going towards now, just how much time it takes.
I definitely am moving that way myself. Like I just basically offer short haircuts and long haircuts, and they come at different price points not because of anything about the skill that I might have, but really it's just about the time that they occupy on the book. So as a stylist, Joseph and anyone else who's listening, you think of your time as a commodity. You can only offer so much of that time during the day. So, depending on the workload that each thing requires, that you can set a price sort of like that. And to me, it took a lot of the guesswork out of pricing, because I'm like, if I have to do long hair with a blowout, then I need to book this long for it. It's going to take me this long. And if I can do a short haircut with just a blowout, and it's going to take this much time, then that's what I'm going to charge for it. But it comes around the idea of setting yourself an hourly wage and then viewing your time as the commodity that you're selling. And I think I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the industry sort of moving that way, especially as we endeavor to kind of remove gender labels, from our pricing structures. I don't know about you, Adrian.
The big fan I'm at, what I think is hilarious, I got friends that own barbershops. They actually charge more for kids' hair than adult hair.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
It's like, why are we giving these kids like a half a discount when it's like stressful, they're screaming, you're sweating, they're on the mom's lap, they're putting them in a headlock, and you're trying to like
no, man, those kid cuts are the hardest ones, because you get a little squirmer there, and then you got their mom with like their arms folded like
So I'm liking that trend. I gotta go there. I've even heard some barbers charge even a little bit more than kids' haircuts, because it's like you're spending the same amount of time and it's stressful as hell. So I was like, what are we doing?
Say, if you guys are listening out there, don't give those kids a break, man. Like if it's, whatever it is you're cutting, I always tell my clients, I don't discriminate based upon age or gender, so if I'm doing a short haircut, it doesn't matter how old they are, they get the same price.
Exactly. So yes, to the question that we got, it's more just a time thing, really. Men's short hair, women's long hair, vice versa. Like, it doesn't matter. It's really just the time. And I do feel like a lot of the times with long hair, it's like, I don't know if you were saying long hair takes you actually shorter. I think that's what you said, right, Jesse? I think it said something like that. Like long hair takes them or short hair takes them a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. Pretty much later. Yeah, so when it comes to the long hair, we all know that we can take shortcuts. It's like sometimes when you are running a little bit of late, you're not going to be dropping that nape guide here. You're going to be dropping that first section here, cutting that hard line, bring those sides in. We can cut that solid form in like a couple sections. But when it comes to short hair, there really is no shortcuts. Now, of course, I think the cutting part takes a little bit longer. But when it comes to the blow drying, that's what kind of helps you with time then. Of course, the blow drying along here, that's what takes longer. The cut part is shorter, blow drying's longer. And I would say it's vice versa with the short hair. This is going to take a little bit longer, but you can see, I'm probably going to just take a little blow dryer and a comb after I'm done, but see how it's already sitting for me? I don't have to do much at all. I didn't even blow dry this part right here. And you can see it's already sitting nice for me. And I'm just going to let that be. I'm not going to keep dampening it down because I want that to kind of just dry naturally how it would for them. If you can see, it always kind of goes up just a little bit or following that head shape, and then it dips down just a little bit more once we get to that temple area. So building that weight up and just really kind of creating that shape on your guest is going to be very important. So putting that shape in, creating that weight line is really going to personalize each one of our clients instead of just cutting a uniform haircut, which is a school term, which is all just kind of that same length. This is going to be a little bit more personal for each one of our clients. So I removed my Velcro strips. Still got some length I need to blend in. So what I'm going to do is continue almost that same sectioning pattern, but I am going to drop down an inch section, working my way all the way around. You can put those Velcro strips back in, clips if you'd like, just to push that out of the way, just making sure everything stays nice and clean. But I am going to drop down an inch, maybe a little bit less, maybe an inch is too much, probably like 3/4 of an inch from the halo section. I like to call it a little halo section, which is the crown and top, and dropping that. When it comes to fades, also short hair, sometimes this is the hardest part, is knowing how to blend those short sides into the long top. That's where all that texturizing comes in, the frustration comes in. So instead of going right into the crown and trying to just cut and then at the end trying to blend it, I'm going to continue on still building that weight up, still building that angle up with the section that I dropped down. So let's just spritz that down just a little bit. I don't know if any of you guys own those infinite spray bottles that just keep spraying and misting with the one pump. These are great. Great for the carpal tunnel. Also with their streamlined shears, I have your forward set thumb. You can see this is going to be great for longevity. Let me just show you a little quick demo that I did before, that Sam also did before, is that when you put our hand out, this is kind of how it naturally is, right? So I do have the classic handle that we all have, and then this is our forward set handle. So if I put my thumb in, or just my hand in, my ring finger in both of them, look where my thumb is automatically. It's closer to that streamline shear, and what we have to do with those classic handles is bring it back, and that's a lot more tension on us. So if you're just looking for more of a natural fit, that's why that forward set thumb, that's why Sam created that, because this is going to be so much easier on your hand. And you can see my thumb just slides right into that streamline, as opposed to that classic where I got to swing that back. It's all about that longevity in this career. We all know people underestimate the physical aspect of it. Of course, the mental could be exhausting, but also physically. I don't know if any of you guys sit on stools, but I love stools. I cut as much as I can on that. I got that thick mat at the bottom. Jesse and I have talked about past too, just at shows about, you know, once we're cutting hair, we're always kind of like hunched over like this. So really sitting down, keeping your posture, your shoulders back is really important.
Oh, dude, as you're working, like, you know, don't stop working. But I remember that show, was it in Chicago, where you ended up, was able to abscond with all of those cutting stools?
Yeah.
You were like rolling them down the middle of the street, like downtown Chicago.
Oh, you mean this one right here?
Yeah, exactly. Like they were gonna throw them away at the end of the show, and Adrian was like, "Hell no, I'm taking them." And so he was like rolling 3 chairs down the middle of the street in downtown Chicago. I think that's where it was.
Oh, it was, yeah. Yeah, we had these stools delivered to us, and we had no room for the pallet. And I'm from the Milwaukee area. We're in Chicago. So I'm in the Milwaukee area, and they, you know, no one could take them. Of course, you can't take them on a plane. So I'm like, I'll take them. So I was just, like Jesse said, rolling down some busy sidewalk in Chicago with 3 stools. They're all like knocking over. I got all the rest of my junk on top of these stools, but I made it. So I dropped down that section. I'm doing vertical sections, still following that weight line, or the cut line, I should say. So I cut the nape area, and I'm just going to continue still following that. And you can see the hair is stretching further away from the head, and that means the weight is going to be built up. So working my way, now it's a little more diagonal forward section going in. And this is where that weight always needs a little more breaking up at the end. So feel free to start switching to point cutting. I do like more blunt lines at the bottom, but I do like to switch to point cutting once I get to this weight line, because we all know this is what needs the most work at the end. So work smarter, not harder. Let's just kind of bust up some of that weight and that heaviness. But I'm continuing on, still doing those diagonal sections, still kicking my fingers out just a little bit, so I'm shorter here at my fingertips and slowly getting longer as I work my way up. So what I'm doing is just still kind of building weight, connecting that top to that bottom, but still following that same angle. So nothing's changed with the cut angle. After this, then I'm going to move on to the crown, and then we're going to be pretty much the same thing, just still trusting that weight line, looking for that short piece at the top, working my way down. Those fingertips should be pointing towards the head on this side. So always kind of checking, making sure everything's going right, making sure that weight is still being built up. You can see that. So diagonal forward. And then the next section after this, as I get to the front hairline, is when my sections start becoming a little bit more horizontal. So this is my second last section. And all I'm doing right now is actually just matching that up to that weight line that I have at the top. Now it's happened when I'm teaching this that, all of a sudden you do get that earmuff look, what I was describing, where maybe students or stylists accidentally over-directed the hair back. They don't have that finger angle, so everything is square and heavy and over-directed back. So whenever you're doing that, and people keep cutting, sometimes you're cutting the wrong spot, and that weight is still there. Starting with that weight line, cutting from the back all the way to the front, you're going to see like a jump. So if you ever had that happening, dropping a little guide in this front area and cutting a guide all the way at the top and then working your way down is going to help that. So whenever that does happen with the earmuff look, at this point, once we get to that ear, there tends to be a big drop in the length right there, and that's what's causing that weight. So if you can never figure this out, figure out where to cut, follow that weight line all the way from the back and work your way all the way to the front, cut a guide at the top, and then do those diagonal sections, and then that's a good way to blend that in. So going on to that other side. So I did have my fingertips downward on this side, but now what I'm going to do is have my fingertips upward. Now my knuckles are going to be close to that head shape. Fingertips are going to be pushed out and making sure that I am still building weight up.
Hey man, keep working, but I've got a couple questions I can fire at you if you keep going there. Do you have any tips for following the guide and staying away from the curve of the head? I mean, I'm watching you do this, and it seems to me that you're working with really fine sections, because even from my vantage point here, I can see very clearly through the new section straight through the old, so that guide is super visible. Is that helpful to work with finer sections like that?
Yeah, whenever I'm cutting, even say like graduated bobs are very technical and all about that angle. I like to grab, say, probably 2/3 of a previous section and only 1/3 of a new section. That is when you can, schools just say with highlighting and foiling, like reading a newspaper through it, you want to see it that thin. So I think a lot of people sometimes grab too thick of a new section and barely any bit of an old section, and then you can't see your guide clearly. Gotcha. So I would say I probably do have my section, my new subsection, more of a previous cut section and then less of a new uncut section, if that makes sense.
Cool. One more.
But when for the head, yeah, I mean, it's really just trying to trust that, because I know we tending to start rounding inward a little bit, but really just getting used to following that angle from the nape all the way up to that where that round of the head is, and just trusting that angle, and that's what's going to really build that weight and that shape that you're seeing.
Okay. And Michaela, sorry I called you Michael earlier. I just realized I'm an idiot. So Michaela wants to know, are you holding your ring finger and pinky against the head for stabilization while cutting?
That was something I was supposed to bring up in the back of my head. You are great. That was a great question. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing.
All right, Michaela.
So let me just show this last section. So yes, I am lifting this up, but look at my last two fingers. These are really anchored and balancing my head. If I was like this, we start swinging, going upward, going downward. But yes, thank you for noticing that. And yes, I wanted to bring that up, that whenever I'm doing this, you can see these two fingers right here is what's stabilizing and holding my hand in place. So yes, please use an anchor, as I've heard it's called, with your hands, and making sure you are where you need to be. Because I feel like sometimes if we let those fingers down, I think we naturally start dropping that where we don't want it. So those fingers kind of keep that hair up in place where it needs to be. And yes, not using the fingers that you're holding the hair with, use your other last 2 fingers and anchor and keep that hair in place. So yeah, great question. Thank you for bringing that up. That was part of my notes. So you can see it is drying on me. There's barely any really work I'm going to have to do when it's dry. This is when I do a little bit of shear over comb, look for any weight. And whenever I'm doing the shear over comb, every time I'm flicking this out, you see those top of that teeth right there? They are always angled outward. I almost want to see those top of the teeth kind of poking out of that hair. Because if they're digging in the hair and I go in, you're going to get shorter and you're going to lose that whole shape. Everything needs to be shorter here and everything gets longer. So making sure that we're doing that, taking that comb, fine teeth, flipping it up, looking for those top of those teeth poking out, and then working your way up. And this could be another technique that's hard to do when it comes to blending in short hair. So definitely practice on the mannequins. The first salon I worked at, we were allowed to use guards and clippers and clipper over comb. They made a shear over comb the whole head, which was a total nightmare, but that's what I got good at. So practicing the shear over comb technique is very important when it comes to short hair and knowing when to blend in any of those unwanted weight lines. All right, so you see that weight being built. Still got the weight line, a little lower, gets a little higher, and then works our way down. Now what I'm doing is just going to blend in that crown. And now I did a little bit of shallow point cutting, which was softening that weight line. But now what I'm going to be doing is doing a little bit more deep point cutting, just removing length. Of course I want balance, but I am not looking for that perfect line. So I'm going to right now is blend, so this is the crown. I'm going to blend that bottom part of the crown to that weight line and not worry about the top just yet. So I'm going to pull that straight out. You can follow that angle if you do want a little bit of weight. Sometimes this is where I actually start kind of becoming a little bit more vertical. Look for that guide and just remove that hair. Like I said, I want it even, but don't want that perfect line, and then be done. So I'm just taking vertical around the head. Of course, making sure that your body position is consistent when you're doing both sides. That is why one side is always longer than the other one, because our body position. And whenever I used to cut the back where my body is, I would actually stand here like how I'm doing, and then I would actually tilt my body this way and try to cut that. And that is very awkward for us righties, vice versa for the lefties. So what I've learned to do is just shift my body. I cut the right side with my fingertips down, and I'm just going to work my way all the way around doing that same thing. And I found that's a little bit more consistent instead of like kind of like bending my back in half. So whenever your body's in an uncomfortable position, usually the hair is not going to be the length that you want it to, because that's our body kind of trying to like go against of what we're trying to do. And usually the hair tends to be a little bit longer on the left side due to that. So just going in, you can see just those soft lines, just breaking that up. So all I did was blend that crown into the bottom part. But this is still looking a little bit heavy. So now I'm going to go in and I'll break the top part of this crown up. I am following the round of the head now. Let me lower this down. I can see I'm a little off screen. I am following the round of the head. Just going in there, doing some point cutting, breaking that up. No perfect lines, just balance is what I'm looking for. So for any of those students, this is the uniform sectioning into what I'm doing. I'm cutting this crown uniform to the head.
Hey man, keep working there. I just want to toss this question up so we can talk about it there. Christy wants to know, if a client comes in and wants this cut, but they don't necessarily have the face shape that would suit it, could you leave the top section longer for more face framing, or would it give the same effect?
It really just, there's only certain people in those looks that can, just pulls off on Pixies. But I mean, I got clients of all shapes and sizes, and yeah, maybe keeping things a little bit longer in some spots would look nice.
Yeah, I heard it said once too that, you're trying to achieve, the oval, which, science has told us is the perfect face shape. So, if someone has like a lot going on in the jaw and neck, that you would establish, a corresponding weight at the top to sort of balance it out, so they don't look like a triangle. So definitely, I think like leaving the top section a little bit longer if they were heavy in the jaw, or if they were too pointy in the jaw, that you would establish weight lower, right?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, you're good. So I did do the point cutting. I'm always like messing with the hair. So see how I'm moving it around just a little bit? Trying to look for any weight. So it should have a little softness to it, movement to it, some airiness to it. So that's when you know that you are kind of following that head shape and there is no unwanted weight. So now what I'm going to do is comb a little bit of that crown forward. I'm going to lift this up, and depending on how much hair they want to get cut off. So that crown, whenever I lift it up, see how it kind of goes at that angle. So if they wanted a good amount of hair off, I would follow that short piece right here at that crown. Otherwise, I can keep sliding my fingers up and use like a longer guide if they wanted to keep it longer. But I'm going to go in and use that shorter guide, and I'm going to cut everything just vertical and square, following that top of the head. So I'm cutting this all square. Sometimes people tend to start angling their fingers up a little too high, and this highest point of the head has so much bulk in it that it's unnecessary. So even this top area, I'm going to pull this up, cut this square, and just by cutting this square, following the head shape, this part is higher and then it starts dropping down. So even cutting it square, this is going to appear shorter, and it's going to get longer in that front, because the fringe always looks a little bit better when it is longer. So by cutting that square and straight across, got to trust that line. This is going to have more texture and a little shorter, and it's going to naturally get a little bit longer because that hair has to reach a little higher to connect to that line. So just by doing that, the fringe is going to be a little bit longer. And my client today, she cut her own fringe. Lydia's one of my recycled mannequins. We always want to keep using these mannequins as much as possible. So the fringe is a little bit shorter on this one as opposed to the one I have here, which is a little bit longer and wispier. So now I'm going to do is continue on just cutting square. I cut that vertical section square, and now I'm just going to cut this right side and blend it into that. And you can see my point cutting. I do want to see a lot of texture in there. Looking for balance, but not perfection. And I do like both in my haircuts. You can see how I was really precise when it came to the sides. But now when it comes to the top area, I'm creating a lot of texture to it. And now right at the end, now that there was that weight line that we just connected to the bottom, there is that guide that we cut at the top. And then just kind of just breaking up any unwanted corners. Now we good on time. We run a little. How much time do we got, Jess?
You're looking good, brother. Man, take a couple more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, so now what I'm doing is just connecting that top to the sides. See that corner right there? I don't want to cut any shortness or cutting length off in that short piece right here by my fingertip or that highest point. I just want to kind of blend those two in together and soften that up. I always like playing a little tickle game. I always say just kind of moving it around, see what it looks like. You can see all that texture that I got. Shape is still there. Let's move on to the other side. So the best tool to use when it comes to practicing is these mannequin heads. So if you don't have a mannequin head at home, please get one. Pivot points, they are the best quality, we would all say, but sometimes even getting like a little cheaper one too anywhere would be great, and just practicing all these techniques. As I said, it took me a long time to really enjoy short hair, and I don't care how old my client is. I got clients that are in their late 70s, 80s, and they know they're going to have some fun, trendy Pixie when they leave my chair. I had a client that had recommended one of her older friends to me also, and she said, don't be asking to have do the curling iron set or roller set because he doesn't do those. I'm like, thank you. So I don't care what age you are going to be looking trendy and good when you leave my chair. So going in again, just breaking up that top part that I just cut to the sides, seeing if there's anything to blend in. Sometimes we never know what the fringe is or how to, it gets really heavy here, but we're afraid to cut into that fringe because it might put a hole in there. So what I like to do is take this fringe and I'm going to comb this past that hairline And that's when I know it's safe, because that looks like a lot of hair, but as long as you're over directing past that hairline, you aren't going to get that hold that we sometimes get in that fringe. Then when you comb that down, it's a little softer and still filled in. Let's do the same thing to the other side. Take that corner, pull that back just a little bit past that hairline, and then we know we're safe and we're not going to be cutting into the fringe. So after I'm done layering it, this is when I do go in at the end and break it up. Told you my client previously, Lydia, she likes cutting her own hair, so I like the length already, but I'm just going to go in and do some deep point cutting. So I'm going to pop that mannequin off. I know time's kind of going, so when it comes to blow drying this, I actually don't really, I'll use like a small round brush sometimes. I only start round brushing from the weight line up, but anything below that weight line, I just take my blow dryer and my comb and keep that as flat as possible, working my way all the way down. And then I would go in with a round brush, depending on the length, maybe even something a little smaller than this, and just kind of just bend those ends in and just work that weight down. I take this front long, or I'm gonna take this front forward, comb this forward, working my way back and forth. We never want to blow dry with the part. It's going to look a lot more natural. So even if this client does push it this way, whenever I'm doing this with the comb or the brush, I'm going to be blow drying to the opposite side. I'm going to be blow drying forward. I'm going to be blow drying the way that they blow dry it. And just keep going back and forth till it's kind of smooth and how I like it. And it's going to have that more natural fall to it. So whenever you're done doing the short hair and blow drying, there's always those texturizing techniques that you need to use. I do have our Invisablend shears also. These are my favorite blenders and texturizers of them all. So what you want to do is lift that up with the shears, the comb, and then kind of go in. And as you're cutting, you want to constantly be moving. You don't want to keep cutting into the same spot. What we're doing is breaking up and layering at the exact same time. Looking for any weight. This is always a visual thing, is looking for that weight and knowing how to attack it. So if it's heavy here, I always start a little bit lower, wait till that catches in my comb, and then work my way up and layer. I don't know if any of you ever did some twist cutting also. That's always a fun technique. It always gets everyone's attention. That you want to look for some weighted areas. Usually the crown gets a little heavy. You're going to grab your fingers, do a little twisting. See where that hair kind of bends, pinch, and loosen up and to work your way. So this is going to just give all different lengths and breaking up any weight just so it's not completely even. And we all know short hair supports long hair. So by cutting some short hair in there, it's going to give us a little bit more lift in that crown.
Dude, awesome job today. That looks amazing.
Yeah, so that would be the final look of my haircut that I just did on the wet hair one. Any last minute questions at all?
I think it's kind of wrapped up here a little bit, man. Very complimentary comments in the chats today. And yeah, really usable salon tech that we definitely can use. Yeah, lots of good comments here.
And I know all the students or who's watching, the stylist, they do have access to this, but I also did a YouTube video. It's like how to cut a Pixie haircut. That's on Sam's YouTube page. So you can use this video, or if you want kind of a more of a quicker video also, check that one out on YouTube if you ever need a refresher in the future.